From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
With greetings and good afternoon. I am Laverne Page, a librarian at the Library of Congress, and I bid you welcome on behalf of two divisions, the African and Middle Eastern Division and the Science, Technology, and Business Division. We have some good news and bad news. Bad news first. I regretfully inform you that Her Excellency Ambassador Cheetah of the genus Acinonyx jupatus, my Latin is so poor, I'm sorry, genus Acinonyx jubatus, currently a resident of the vast state of Ohio in the US of A, will not be with us today. Within these hallowed halls, with regret, I tell you that. Yet, our good news is that we do have her emissarium, her emissary, she who represents the Acinonyx jupatus. I keep mispronouncing that. She's here with us today, Dr. Laurie Marker, who has traveled from the Republic of Namibia in southern Africa. Cheetahs don't roar. I'm told they bubble, chirp, and purr, and they would do that for Dr. Marker for the work that she's conducted on behalf of animal wildlife. At the library, I'm an area specialist in the African and Middle Eastern Division, and I work with the Southern African countries. And in that guise, I made the acquaintance of Dr. Marker's work this past spring at the U.S. Angola Chamber of Commerce. An event here in Washington took place where she spoke about her work with cheetahs and also with energy resources in Angola. At this time, I would like to introduce you to our acting chief of the African and Middle Eastern Division, Dr. Peggy Pearlstein, who will introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Laurie Marker is founder and executive director of the Cheetah Conservation Fund with its headquarters in Namibia, Africa. Having worked with cheetahs since 1974, she set up the not-for-profit fund in 1990 and moved to Namibia to develop a permanent conservation research center for the wild cheetah. In 1992, the Cheetah Conservation Fund became a registered Namibian Trust. Its groundbreaking activities are housed at their International Research and Education Center in the main cheetah habitat of the country. In July 2000, the fund opened a field research station to the public, featuring a visitor center as well as a cheetah museum and education center. Dr. Marker is a biologist and received her doctorate from Oxford University in England. She has an extensive resume and has received a very impressive list of special awards. Rather than reading this long list, it's probably best to refer you to the website of the Cheetah Conservation Fund, which you can see on the screen here. And now we're very pleased here at the Library of Congress to welcome Dr. Marker.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here and appreciate you all taking your lunch hour to learn about cheetahs, which are the most wonderful and amazing animal there is in the world. I hope that you'll all join me in appreciating that, and glad to have a couple ambassadors here with this ear tag in. Maybe it could be launched into the wild here in Washington, D.C. somewhere. I do have two of our Cheetah Conservation Fund staff, our research assistant director for research and Schmidt-Kunzel, and a geneticist and veterinarian, and Allison Rogers from our Cheetah Conservation Fund office here, that we're based in the United States here in Alexandria, but our field base is over in Namibia. And I would like to share with you some of the work that we do. And I am going to talk about the race for its survival. Being the fastest of all the land animals, it is in a race, and I think that we are actually looking for this future. But at this point in time, you know, the cheetah is not going to change its spots. It is a sprinter, and it's not a marathoner, and today I think we're in a marathon for species survival. So I'm going to talk with you a bit about the biology of the cheetah, some about the history of the cheetah, some of our global challenges that we're really faced with, as well as that of some of our education and conservation programs, and then really what the future is going to look like, and I hope the future that all of you will help us to be a part of as well. So they are the fastest land animal. If you can just imagine how the cheetah runs 70 miles an hour with 1 foot touching the ground and 2 points in the stride, no feet are touching the ground. Every part of the cheetah's body is built for speed. Small head, aerodynamic body, a tail that's like a rudder for balance so they don't roll over and spin out at 70 miles an hour, and 2 points in their stride, they're flying through the air when they're stretched out totally and doubled up, and that's really what makes them just one of the most amazing species. Today, the problem facing the cheetah is people. And although we can't run like the cheetah and steal its food quite like that, the problem facing the cheetah is that of loss of habitat and loss of prey, and all of these really revolve around human-dominated issues. Now, the cheetah is just amazing. And few of us have ever really seen little tiny cubs, and actually understand and live with them and know about them and study them is absolutely unbelievable. But when a litter is born, and not that many litters are born in captivity, in the wild, but then what actually is their future going to be? A female can have up to 6 cubs, 4 to 5 is average. We know that there's about a 30% infant mortality under a month of age as the cubs start dispersing from their mom, and we've looked at a lot of this, and we'll talk a little bit more about them. But the female cheetah is the most amazing. She raises her cubs on her own, and they stay with her until they're about 18 to 22 months of age. Everything about the cheetah female revolves around raising her cubs and taking care of them. They're not a big, powerful, and aggressive animal. And this is a problem for them in protected areas. They lose about 95% of their cubs in protected areas because of the problems facing them with other large predators. Lions and hyenas will steal their food, kill their young, and although the cheetah is the fastest animal, it can't protect its cubs. So there's many problems facing them. As cheetahs are on their own, the mother teaches the cubs how to hunt when they are growing up, and it's all about following their body and learning how their body works and how to hunt and how to kill. But then on their own, they leave mom at about 18 to 22 months, and the brothers and sisters stick together. Males actually stay together their entire life. That's formed a coalition, and brothers are very important in actually holding territories. And then when the female cubs come into heat, dominant males chase them away. They can disperse a couple 100 kilometers away, and the females, usually cubs, stay within their mother's home ranges. So that's a little bit about what their biology is like. And one of the biggest things really affecting their survival is that the adult cheetahs are the ones that are oftentimes killed off in high numbers in the problems that they're facing today. And that really is an interface with humans. Human-wildlife conflict, as they're pushed out of these game reserves, they're in conflict with humans. And as people see them, they usually are seeing the adult animals at 4 to 5 years of age when dominant males are holding down territories and farmers catch and kill them, or females as they're going to marking areas to find males as they're reaching reproductive age at about 3 years of age. So just the energy of getting into a breeding age is quite complex and hard for the cheetahs. So as I've talked about, the problems facing them is the loss of habitat and the conflict with other large predators, and then this conflict with humans and livestock, which I'm going to talk much more about, and then actually maintaining a viable population, which is quite difficult in the human-dominated landscape that Africa is looking at today. But the cheetahs have a very long history on Earth. They're one of the oldest of all the cats. Their closest relatives are that of the North American, the puma or cougar, and that of the jacaranda. But as you can see from our map, we have actually, the cheetah originated in North America, went over land bridges and populated all 4 of the continents of the world, and then something happened, and we believe it was about 10,000 years ago that the cheetah went through a bottleneck of some sort. And with that genetic bottleneck, that was the same point in time when the cheetah was here in North America and we lost it. It went extinct. We also lost about 40 of the large mammals that were also shared the United States, North America with us. So we're not quite sure really what happened. We have and can theorize many different things that did occur, but what it did is it left the cheetah genetically the same. So it went through this big population and came out kind of all looking like the same species. So the cheetah is genetically similar, and this is some of the early research that we've done with the National Cancer Institute and Dr. Stephen O'Brien, and who is my mentor and many of the other geneticist mentors in the world and cat specialists. But one of the things that we also looked at is that cheetahs don't breed well in captivity. My history with cheetahs goes back to '74. I ran a wildlife park in Oregon, and we were one of the few places in the world actually breeding a few cheetahs. And I started working with Dr. O'Brien and friends at the Smithsonian, the National Zoo, David Wilt and Mitch Bush, and we actually discovered this limited genetic variation and started looking at the reproductive problems. But with that, as you lose genetic diversity, it also causes a species to be much more vulnerable to the ecological changes and environmental changes that we're facing today. And as you look at where cheetahs live throughout their range, they're all in arid environments. And as you also think about global warming, we're quite concerned about the multitude of problems that can eventually continue to affect the cheetahs. So their time is ticking away, and I live down here in Namibia. Namibia is a country that's about 2.5 times the size of California. It's a very large country, a very arid country, about 2 million people. The red areas where cheetahs are found today, with only about 10,000 cheetahs left in the world. Most of these populations up in here we don't know a lot about, and probably 2/3 of those populations are so low in number, there could only be perhaps 20 to 50 animals, less than 100. The last of the Asian cheetah is up here in Iran, where there's about 70 to 100 individuals, and we are working up there and throughout many of these cheetah range countries. But 100 years ago, the cheetahs were found in areas throughout all of this yellow, and it is a recent extinction, I would say, in the 50s in India, the 70s there in the Middle East, and the 80s into the northern areas of Russia. So again, this is what it looks like with a fragmented population of maybe 10 to 50 animals, interspersed with huge human populations, where this growth of the populations occurs and the cheetahs get pushed out of game reserves. They're then in constant interface with humans and their livestock, potentially in conflict and in contact with domestic dogs and cats and different diseases. And this is an area up in Kenya, actually. This is the Nairobi National Park. There's a cheetah in the park, and the cheetahs are no longer there in the Nairobi National Park, just because of the continually growth of the populations. And in working and living in Africa, and working out of there for 35 years, and living there for 20 years, and traveling throughout Africa, everybody that I look at really looks like this. And as you look at them and you say cheetahs are beautiful, I mean, they're just wonderful. But to most Africans, really the value of wildlife is very limited. They don't see the beauty that we see, but they're living with these animals. And it's all about economics, it's all about livelihoods. So these are the questions on whether you're a cattle farmer, or a sheep farmer, or a camel farmer. Throughout Africa, there are conflicts with these predators. The cheetah and all of our top predators do maintain the health of ecosystems, and that's not something that you can talk to a subsistence farmer. It's not something that you can really talk about and explain to a rich farmer. You can't really explain it to somebody in Europe or somebody in America or in Africa, but our top predators maintain ecosystems. Ecosystems maintain biodiversity. Biodiversity maintains us. It's very simple, but we don't seem to have the basis of ecology figured out, and we're losing ecosystems and we're losing top predators that help us. Now, I'd like to bring you back into Namibia. In Namibia, everyone is a rancher and a farmer. I am too, and Cheetah Conservation Fund is. We're model farmers, and we put a lot of work into practice. Cheetahs are found in this area here, which is about the size of California, and it's right where our commercial livestock farming is. Each one of these little black dots here is a commercial farm that's about 10,000 acres, 5,000 hectares. The red are national parks, but there's less than 5% of our cheetah population living in national parks. They're all right in the heart of the farming area. But in Namibia, it's a very special country, and it's independent. We got our independence about 20 years ago, the same time as I set up the Cheetah Conservation Fund, that although 95% of our cheetahs are living on the farmlands with the cattle, goats, and sheep and farmers, we have also about 70% of our wildlife species outside of the protected areas. So it's an integrated system of livestock, wildlife, and predators. Cheetahs have found a niche in there because a lot of the lions are gone because the lions and farmers don't seem to work well together, and the cheetah populations have actually grown. These are some of the favorite food of the cheetah: kudu, red hartebeest, the oryx, and the cheetahs not only will hunt the larger antelope, but also the young of those antelope. Conflict and predators go hand in hand, and I always say, is it a problem predator, or is it problem people, by us not quite understanding how things work. But in my years of coming and going through Namibia, farmers had actually killed over 10,000 cheetahs in a 10-year period of time, as I was back over here in the United States from my early studies in Namibia in the 70s, learning what I had learned there and coming back here and traveling around the country and letting people know that the cheetah had a lot of challenges and what could be done. And I thought that there was a they. I call it the they factor, that they will take care of things if people know about it. And as the decade went on and none of the large organizations actually said that they would go do anything, I set up the Cheetah Conservation Fund and set up our base in Namibia at Independence to say that if this kind of a removal is going on, what's really happening? Is it a perceived threat, or is it an actual threat to the livestock? So as I moved into Namibia, I went door to door and I talked to farmers. And I found out a lot about them, about their systems, their family lives, their livestock, their wildlife, what they knew about predators, what they knew about cheetahs. But it was all about the farming systems. And from that, started asking them that if they caught a cheetah, instead of killing it, could we come and start collecting biological samples? What could we actually do to work together, and actually put out a book that's called Cheetah Survival on the Namibian Farmlands. I don't think it's in the Library of Congress, is it? I'll have to make sure we get one here. But out of this, what I found out is that improperly managed livestock will become the prey of predators. And what we don't want is we don't want predators eating prey, livestock. And this is a worldwide phenomenon. So the wolves in Montana and Wyoming are eating some livestock, and a lot of it really revolves around our management. And as we as humans put this kind of opportunity in front of predators, what we're doing is causing more problems for predators and people, and it's a revolving problem. But we've actually learned a lot about this, and we've developed many tools, and the tools are actually helping, I think, not only save cheetahs, but many other predators. We were one of the first people to actually go outside of protected areas and talk to people about their issues with predators. And it's been a long-term study, and very proud of the amount of people that we worked with. I like people a lot, and I like cheetahs a lot. And I think that if we share what cheetahs are living and how they're living, then cheetahs and people can live together. Our founding president, His Excellency Dr. Sam Nyoma, who is the founder of Namibia, the father of Namibia, actually is our international patron. And I met him here in Washington, D.C., right before moving over to Namibia. And Namibia had just developed its constitution. It's the first constitution in the world that has sustainability of our systems and protection of our environment. And I honored him and told him, did you know that cheetahs, well, Namibia is the cheetah capital of the world? And he said, well, no, nobody had ever told me. I don't even know what a cheetah is. So by becoming our patron, he's become our dear friend as well. We have short-term and long-term goals. We do have a sanctuary now after 20 years of orphans coming in and out, and we've got 57 orphans at our center right now. But our main goal is to try to put cheetahs back out into the wild. Most of these animals are animals that farmers have caught that were perceived threats to livestock, are not catching livestock, and the farmers allow us to put them back out into the wild. So we put over 600 animals back out into the wild. Our research is as a leader in reproductive studies, genetic studies, reintroduction studies, ecology studies on how the cheetah lives. And then looking at our education and trying to actually share the story of the cheetah with people worldwide and try to educate not only people and students and children, but young scientists, older scientists worldwide, politicians. So our message in education is deep, far, and wide. And conservation is actually to develop programs that will ensure the survival of the cheetah in the world. We have a wonderful research and education center that we did develop 10 years ago, and I welcome everybody to come and visit us in Namibia. And it is a museum that is, it's an educational museum. We get school children there, farmers, and people, and we're in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the bush. We get about 3,000 school children each year that come and visit us. But from our center, where we have a lot of land that we use for research, we breed livestock guarding dogs. And these dogs actually protect the livestock from predators. And much of our research revolves around understanding how these dogs work. We do a lot of work with school children as well. And we work with a program that I think is really, really important. It's called Future Farmers of Africa, because Africans don't want to be subsistence farmers. They want to be like we are. They want to get to a level so that they're not worried about every single day and whether that goat has been died from a disease or from a predator. And so often they don't even know what caused the problems, and so much of it revolves around the lack of knowledge, not the lack of information that they have. So Future Farmers of Africa, I think, is very important. And then also working with other range countries, taking our model from what we've developed in Namibia and now training biologists throughout the cheetah's range countries and other predator friends. This is a group of Iranians who we worked with now for a 10-year period of time. And we've had many biologists come down and gone through our training in Namibia. There's only 100 cheetahs left in Iran. Well, maybe 10 years ago there were less than that, but today the cheetah has a face in Iran, and we've been working with them on developing our next 10-year strategy to try to double that population in Iran as well. Now, I was just in Angola, and this is a short little video that is this is where I lived down at the Waterberg Plateau Park. I went up to the Iona National Park, where there had been a civil war for 35 years, and we didn't know if there was any wildlife living. It was a very, big survey.
It's either cheetah or leopard, so we will take a sample and we'll do some hair analysis and DNA to try to find out what it is. It's quite exciting. We're going to look at some other trees here too. I'll collect the scat again. Full of a lot of sand. No, it smells like cheetah.
This is a very candid video, but I thought you'd enjoy it.
It's like a classic, perfect cheetah play-tree. It's just amazing. I think there's probably a lot down here. I'm sure there's cheetahs out here. And it'd be a great place to find out more. Lots of springbok. All over there, yep. Need food for cheetahs. There's a cheetah right there. Can you even believe that? 2 cheetahs. I don't even believe this. I don't even believe this.
I didn't.
This is the most exciting thing. I can't even believe it. Well,
So So I didn't believe it, but I've gone into a few different areas and looking at surveys, trying to find out where cheetahs may be. We thought that they were extinct in Angola, and are now know that they are there or have somehow made it through the war for a long time. The game numbers are coming back, and we're trying to work closely with the government to look at a potential growth of this Iona National Park. So it is quite exciting. And then the scat all comes back to my colleague, Anne, and we can then look at the makeup of the population. We're trying to actually look at cheetahs throughout their range. And so anyone who knows anyone anywhere who might find scat, please, we're collecting scat. As a biologist, we spend a lot of our time looking at that, but we do a lot of other sample collection as well. This is the area that our direct research area, which is about 15,000 square kilometers. Our center is right here at the base of the Waterberg National Park. And all of these red dots are where we have gone to farmers and picked cheetahs up that the farmers had trapped and wanted to kill and ask for our help. All the black dots are where we've gone door to door and talked to farmers about their issues. And so I have a lot of background history on all of this whole system. And then here in this area, our direct research area, is where we've done a lot of our radio telemetry. So all of these are points that we've then gone and done a lot of ground truthing. So we know a lot about the habitat of how cheetahs live and how they do live. So we work in taking blood samples, fecal samples, we do necropsies. And our biology program is very, very extensive. This is Dr. Stephen O'Brien, who is the renowned geneticist from the National Cancer Institute, who I worked with in the early 80s when we first discovered the lack of genetic variation with the cheetahs. We have developed some wonderful labs in the middle of nowhere where we have reproductive physiology labs, we collect our blood. We've got one of the largest databases on over 900 cheetahs, which is amazing. Some of the studies that we also look at, since we have these orphan cheetahs that live in our sanctuary, that we've looked at gastritis, and cheetahs that live in captivity around the world, and there are about 1,000 of them. We know that about 99% of them have very big problems with gastritis, which is a Helicobacter, which is the same kind of problem that causes us as humans to get gastritis or ulcers. And so we study that. Again, we use scat, but we also do a lot of work with endoscopies, and we're trying to link it together with some of the problems that face cheetahs in captivity, some of the rare diseases that we've worked on and studied for about 25 years. And we do a lot of our collaboration with the Smithsonian and the National Zoo. This is just what the cortisol levels look like for a wild cheetah, that of captive cheetahs. And so the diseases are quite problematic in captivity, and we make recommendations using our data then to try to allow cheetahs to live more healthy in our captive environments. Some of our reproductive physiology research has been with, again, our Smithsonian partners. And after 25 years of studying, we've learned a lot about banking sperm. And from our bank sperm, cheetahs do have about 70% abnormal sperm. This is one of the poster childs of abnormal sperm, 4 heads, 2 tails. But we do and have developed field practices that we can bank down sperm at best practice. And in the last few years, we've been working together in basic biology of the female to try to understand a lot more about the female aspect of reproduction, and we were able to actually bank the first blastocyst stage embryo, and that's also banked at our field station in Namibia. Here's some of our orphans, and I just we've got, each one of them have a story, and you can learn more about them. We just got the Okakara clan in about a month ago. We released 4 cheetahs back in the wild, and the same day we got 4 cheetahs in. Okakara is a community near us. The stars are 2 years old. They came in as 2-day-old cubs, and Allison and Anne and myself helped raise them from that period of time. Raising little cubs up like this is not very easy. This is the age of our 57 cheetahs. They're all now getting older, and some of these older ones are going to give us more health issues, but we use them to learn much more. And then when they've come in, they all come in the blue age as very tiny babies, under usually 2 months. So when they come in at that age, they don't think that they're cheetahs, and they really can't go back out into the wild. But we've looked at trying to find the kinds of personalities and behavior of certain cheetahs that might be able to go back out into the wild. But that is a separate thing, because that's a program that we call rewilding with some of our habituated cheetahs. As I said, most of the animals that we now handle are animals, if they're adults and they're caught in cages, and they were caught because they were there on the land, a perceived threat to livestock. So what we do is we work with the farmers to put them back in the wild. And today, fortunately, most of the farmers are learning about this, and they've learned that they don't have to catch and kill cheetahs. But what we've learned over the years with our radio telemetry study is how they live, and how we know a lot about the movement patterns. And so with collars, VHF collars, we use satellite collars now, which are wonderful. We know that a home range is about 1,600 square kilometers. It's one of the largest home ranges of anything on Earth, actually. And then you start looking at how you manage populations like this. What does that mean? They're covering, for a cheetah, an average range is 20 farms, which each of those is about 10,000 acres each. And you just don't go buy everything up. You have to work with people. And this has allowed us, by showing these kinds of movement patterns over different farmlands, is that the farmers have learned a lot about how the cheetahs live on their lands. We do other censusing techniques as well, working together with Fabiano, who's one of our PhD students, and Mati and Kembwa, who is our chief ecologist. And we've developed a lot of work around spore tracking and that of camera trapping, which now, taking a lot of the work that we've done with our radio telemetry, overlapping it with the camera trapping, we've learned much more about the densities of these cats. And we do work very closely with many different partners, but Earthwatch has been one of our very, very important partners in much of the work that we've done, and we've had a 16-year partnership with Earthwatch. So if anyone wants to volunteer, please come and we put you to work, and Earthwatch is great to work with. So this is what some of our camera trapping looks like. You already saw in the one video that cheetahs go to play trees. They go there, they mark their territory with scat, which makes it very easy for us to find. The cameras are set up so that the cheetahs take their own pictures. And by learning how the cheetahs live in much of our radio telemetry, it shows us where we can actually put cameras. Cheetahs do have an all individual spotting pattern, so you can tell them all differently by how they look. And you start looking at these cats, and the spots come out at you, and you can tell all the cheetahs differently. And then our intense research area is about 600 square kilometers. And this is sort of how we would set up our camera traps and some of the pictures that we get. But even over this huge area of 600 square kilometers, I think that's 300 square miles for you to kind of put your head around. We only would find, and this is our 5th year, about 10 to 12 cheetahs. And out of that, it comes to a density of a very low density of about 4 cheetahs per 1,000 kilometers square. So that's 4 cheetahs per 500 square miles. I think my math is correct there. So it gives you an idea of the amount of low density and how you actually find these animals. So the camera traps are great, the radio telemetry is great. But we're doing several other things. Now, this is just recently, we were able to set up a genetics lab. And with the Applied Biosystems, and this is Anne, and this is her lab and her gene sequencer, which is probably the most important piece of equipment for geneticists, that this was donated to us down in the middle of Namibia to find out if we could actually use it for our genetics work. This is Dr. Bruce Brewer, and he's our general manager. Fabiano is our PhD student who's actually spent time both here. You met him at the Angola meeting. But from that, there's a couple things. So we're looking at kind of the how cheetahs are. How does the population structure look like? And so for my PhD, I was able to actually identify cheetahs, throughout Namibia. This is the whole area that I got samples in, and could find out that there's a structure to it, but we found outliers in different areas of the country where you'd end up with a smaller number of alleles. And these are things that we're trying to look a little bit more at to find out how the population is going to flow through not only Namibia as we continue to fragment even Namibia, but into other populations of Botswana and that into Zimbabwe, and that's where our studies are going forward. But I forgot to introduce Chewbacca, who is sitting there in the genetics lab as well. Now, Chewbacca is an ambassador who I've raised since he was about 10 days old. He is 15 years of age. And this is him anesthetized just a couple weeks ago with Dr. O'Brien there and Dr. Schmidt-Kunzel. And what we're doing is taking a biopsy of him, and he is going to be sequenced. He's going to be the cheetah that is sequenced for eternity to kind of pay back him for being the great ambassador and for us to learn much more about. So it's an honor for Chewbacca, and he's going to be part of what's called the Genome 10K project. But we want to know more about population monitoring and understanding how these are. And I'm pretty good at finding play trees. Mati is really good too. We can find the scat, but there's more scat out there, and dogs are wonderful. So this is Finn, and Finn is an employee, an ecologist at CCF. He was born and educated in Philadelphia and went to scat detection dog training in Seattle, and then was donated to us a year and a half ago. And so he's now, along with one of our other dogs, and we're getting more scat detection dogs in, are going to be helping us with our work throughout all of the different areas of not only Namibia, but these other range countries that we're starting to work in. So as you saw early on with the video, that habitat and prey are very, very important, and we do study this. It's very, very important. But one of the things that as we've been in Namibia for years studying it, we've realized early on that we were losing half of the cheetah's habitat in one of the most important countries. And it's not a Namibian phenomenon at all. It's a phenomenon around places that are overgrazed in an arid environment. It's called bush encroachment. Bush encroachment is a form of desertification. And you end up, this is what Namibia looked like. It was a grassland savanna, and from overgrazing in an arid environment, thickened thorn bushes have taken over. And if any of you have been over to Africa, you know what those thorn bushes feel like. Well, they've now taken over about a third of the country, and this green area is area that is very, very thick in thorns, so thick that you can't penetrate it. So that means that farmers have doubled the size of their farmland to have the same amount of cattle. They can't kill the bush, and so they're killing more cheetahs. And we got involved in this because we found cheetahs with blinded eyes that were becoming livestock catching animals, and the blinded eye was being caused by them scratching their eyes in this thick bush. So we actually started studying this, and that's where the map earlier was. We've got about 26 million hectares of thickened thorn bush. It's reduced the farming productivity. It's affected our economy by over $1 million US per year. And it's changed the biodiversity. And this is what some of the eyes early on that we were actually seeing. And so we got involved in this thinking, there's got to be a solution to this thick bush instead of just killing cheetahs and everybody being angry. And so we started a habitat restoration project and wondered whether we could actually maybe put people to work by chipping bush, and if so, what would that look like and how would you do it? And we had to do a lot of biodiversity studies and continue to do this to find out if your harvest is appropriate or not. So we put a whole bunch of people to work. And so that's then the sort of like the social side of things, is communities benefiting from having a predator on the land. And then we ended up coming up with an interesting project, which is called a fuel log or an eco log, kind of like your Duraflame logs, but our logs are don't have any additives and they're heavier. And we are Forest Stewardship Council certified. And I'm a big proponent of certification. Everybody should buy certified products because that means that it is done in a way that is appropriate for biodiversity and ecology in the future. So we harvest about 2,000 tons a year, which is not very much. And we have put a lot of people to work, and this is what our little plant looks like. That's what the logs look like. This is called an extruder. And I've learned a lot about bush, and we like women to work with us as well. And our bush logs have become quite famous in small areas, but one of them was that we did win the Intel Environmental Award a couple years ago through the Tech Awards, and it's gotten quite a bit of other attention as well. But now we're looking at understanding the harvest rates and the biodiversity, and we're using cheetah ranges to understand what ranges of cheetahs and prey and what the habitat looks like and what we're modeling for. And we're thinking that we could actually have so much bush that we could go into biomass generation. And this is the area that we're looking at right now, because our little fuel logs are just too little and they're not going to really take the habitat to the degree that we need. And so we're now looking at the appropriate technique, and and I think Europe by 2020 is supposed to have 20 or 30% biomass used in its fuel for power. So we very well may be powering Europe, and I do call that Cheetah Power. Back to kind of the groundwork, because a lot of these things you need people, and people need to understand things. And this is again where we spend a lot of our time with our Future Farmers of Africa program. We teach and train farmers how to give vaccinations, how to properly have livestock integrated with wildlife. So there's a lot that can be done. These are our livestock guarding dogs. This is Ushi and Tai Li, and they grow up and actually live with the flock. So they think that they are the smart goat. They look a lot like them. They come from Turkey, and we have used the Kangal and the Anatolian Shepherd because they have short hair. They're independent thinkers, and they really don't need us at all. But they are very, very smart, and they've been doing this to protect livestock for over 6,000 years. So we have bred over 350 puppies and donated them to farmers. It's a rare breed with a very reduced gene pool as well, and so we actually are trying to get new bloodline in. This year we just had the first puppies born through artificial insemination, and for here in the United States, probably dog breeders do that, but over in Africa it was sort of a rarity, and getting the sperm in was the first sperm into Namibia. So those are our 3 AI puppies, and they'll all be kind of the future breeders with that gene pool. We've had another 20 puppies born already this year as well, and we put farmers through training courses. We donate the puppies when they're about 8 weeks of age. They go out to the farming communities. We then work with the farmers. We follow up, make sure that they're all doing well on a constant long-term basis. And I put this picture up here because oftentimes we think that children are in schools, which is where they should be. Out in Africa, throughout most of Africa, kids are really lucky if they get to go to school at all. Most often the kids are out taking care of their family's herds, their goats, their sheep. And what would you do if your kids, or what would I do if I was out there in the bush at that age, even at my age now, and I ran into a cheetah or a leopard or a poisonous snake or a lion? Man, I would run away. Hence, more livestock loss. But the kids should be in school, and so the dogs actually play a key role. They can protect livestock, kids can go to the school, farmers don't lose livestock, they can live with predators, so it's a happy, happy, happy story. We like happy stories. So with our international training, we are now bringing people from throughout Africa down into our training programs. And over the last few years, we've put over 400 international biologists through conservation science programs. The last couple years, we've been focusing just on cheetah range country biologists. These are professionals to give them the best training. And much of our work has been supported by the Howard Buffett Foundation. And we also do a lot of training with Namibians, and we've put over 65 Namibians through our training programs that are 6-month programs, and many of them are now running the environmental programs in the Ministry of Environment and Education and Agriculture. Back to some of the economics. So we've been able to find out that you can live with predators. We know that our beef's some of the best in the world because it's also predator friendly in most cases. Certification, again, is a very important thing that I've already talked with you about. And doing one of the economic studies, this is also a part of my PhD, realized that people will pay more money in a price premium if you have good food. Organic's good. It doesn't mean that predators aren't being killed. But what we looked at was working with our Meat Co. and our farmers that were doing good work in conservancies, and we developed a label that we're trying to market, which is called Cheetah Country Beef, whereby being certified as a good farmer who's not killing cheetahs and is doing really good with his integrated system of livestock protection and wildlife management, that Cheetah Country Beef can actually bring a price premium back to farmers, and they can be not making this money, they can be making that money, and it would actually take over a lot of Africa, and cheetahs and other predators could actually survive for the future. So what we need are more models, and conservancies are important, and Namibia is a model for conservation. So these large scapes really interface with people, livestock, wildlife, and this is the model that we're looking at from throughout Africa. Namibia has over 40% of the country in conservation. The brown areas are communal conservancies. The green areas in here are commercial conservancies. This is National Park. In 20 years, we've gone from a core of about 2,000 cheetahs in this whole area to now the big cores are in these pink areas to probably close to 4,000 cheetahs. So cheetahs, we've doubled the range, we've doubled the number, and we've gotten people who have learned to live with cheetahs. Now we're looking at a whole nother area in our next door neighbor. We are right over here. This is the Waterberg Plateau Park. This is a communal conservancy by the Herero-speaking people, or the Okakrara clan. And it's an area where cheetahs, wild dogs, and rhinos are all living. And we're now looking at an area that is about 20 million acres, and is the greater Waterberg complex. And we believe that this is going to be one of the largest areas where cheetahs and their friends can live in harmony with people. So although we acknowledge that there are places where there is still conflict and all predators can live, we have solutions, we've got models, and we're going to grow this throughout the cheetah's range. We've done reintroductions, and this is quite exciting, taking some of our habituated cheetahs. These are four cats that were released a month ago in a couple-week period of time. They've been hunting regularly. They're doing very, very well. With this rewilding, these are habituated cats that came in as orphans at CCF. We've reestablished the southern part of Namibia. With the work that we've done for the last several years, we're looking at actually with this, going and trying to reestablish populations in Zambia, as well as in potentially northern Kazakhstan in Russia. And just last year, I think we were a part of, this is what we've learned, we were a part of working together with people in India to potentially rewild a population of cheetahs back into India as well. So we've learned a lot about what needs to be done. We need habitat, we need prey, we need animals that we can learn about, which we've done, and we need people who are willing to want to live with cheetahs again. Cheetahs were extinct in India for the last 50 years, and they might come back again. They've been revered for kings, emperors, and princes for over 5,000 years. They've been loved to near extinction, and today's the time that we may have an opportunity of trying to bring them back. So we've made a difference. We've looked at the ecology side of things, we've looked at the social side, and we've looked at the economy. And out of all of this, we think that if we can get it right, that we can actually save the cheetah for the future. So we believe that we have to be creative in conservation for the future. Of course, that also stands for CCF, which is Cheetah Conservation Fund. Thank you very much, and we hope that we will continue to work with the people, and our visions are big, our challenges are even bigger, and I'm just hoping that the cheetah will keep us going forward fast, and we need lots of people to help us. Spread the word, tell lots of people that you can get involved. Help us in many ways, and a lot of it does revolve around economics, because the work that happens is not government funded. We are a small nonprofit organization, and everything that we do is done because people care and care about the cheetah, the ecosystem, and other people. So come and visit us. I've told everybody you're always welcome. Namibia is probably the safest country there is in the entire world. It is a great place. It is democratic. It's a great place to invest as well. So think about Namibia, learn about Namibia, and from Namibia, we are going to be changing the world. Thank you. We do have about 5 minutes if anybody would like a question. Yes?
Two quick ones. First, congratulations on this. This is magnificent. I'm wondering, your ability to introduce 600 animals back into the wild over a total population of 10,000, that's incredible. I'm wondering
These were already animals that were living in the wild. We just got to let the farmers let them out instead of taking them back. Okay.
I'm wondering, do you do any reintroductions of domesticated animals that have been kept in captivity?
Well, those are our rewilding programs. And that's where we've reestablished the southern part of Namibia, and we're now looking at rewilding some of these other countries.
Do there, you did nice graphs on how stressed out the captive ones were in terms of disease, cortisol, blood levels. Do they change once they're released into the wild? That's question one.
We're trying to find that out. But our cats that live in our Namibian, I should have said that, our baseline, because we're in such a large area. So our cats in our studies over a 10-year period have been the baseline for studying why all the other cats living in captivity in zoos around the world are stressed. And so that gives you that. Go ahead.
The second thing is the biggest threat is people.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you've had any success getting African conservation groups to jump into this. And I'm asking from the perspective of someone who's worked with the Bonobo Conservation Initiative in Central Congo, where we've had huge success by basically getting local people to jump on board for two different sets of reasons. One, economic. We help provide health clinics, schools, that kind of thing, in exchange for protection. But the other is more ideation. I'm wondering if anywhere in the Southern African sphere where you're introducing these programs, people have an indigenous respect for cheetahs. Now, in our Bonobo work, we found a group that had proscriptions against hunting and killing. And they protect the wild. They don't need outside groups. It's their tradition.
The answer is no.
Nothing like
No. This is all about human-wildlife conflict, and they're predators. So bonobos are lovely. You're lucky. But with it, we work, my hat is as a Namibian. And Namibia, Cheetah Conservation Fund is a Namibia foundation. So we're actually, we are Namibian, even though I have an American accent. You get me to help tell the story. I'm an American as well, so not many, I'm a tough cookie there, I guess. But we do work with, and that's what we're doing with our training programs, are trying to develop programs. We're working with all the different governments of cheetah range countries so that they can all have a Cheetah Conservation Fund program in their countries that is as successful as ours. So it's the model. I hope I've been able to help share that a little bit.
I also have two questions. One is, are cheetahs still threatened by poaching for the fur trade?
It's a small amount and not the biggest threat to them. Their prey base that is poached is more. The young cubs being caught and sold as cubs is the biggest threat to them. And many of these cats are now going into the Middle East. But usually they are caught as cubs and they die. So it's not that good.
The second question is, a lot of people like to keep exotic animals. How much of a problem is it for people to get a hold of like baby cheetahs and then try to sell them into like the pet?
Well, there is some illegal trade, as I just mentioned, going into mostly places like the Middle East. What we were able to do, and I've actually run the International Studbook and developed it about 25 years ago, but there were so few cheetahs living in captivity, we were able to work together with the international professional zoological organizations, actually group around it, and there is no movement and sales of cheetahs into private parties, so to speak. Europe has a little bit, but the cheetah in that respect has been quite well protected, except now some of the illegal trade that's going on because they've been used for hunting. Kings, emperors, and princes used them for coursing, like falconry. And if you got enough money, you can pay somebody. And I think the man next to you is from Somalia, and we've actually had some things going on there where there's been a lot of capture down in the Ethiopia area. And then they've gone into like Djibouti and into the Middle East. And we've been involved in some of that work quite a bit.
I just want to say something very sad, which is I lived in Uganda as a child and we used to go to Richardson Falls Game Park where there used to be cheetahs.
Yes.
There aren't any now. Are there any attempts to put cheetahs back into the places where cheetahs have been?
Well, that's why we're working in Zambia at this point in time. In Uganda, we've had students from there coming down, or professionals from their wildlife department. So Uganda is on our list, but the governments have to come to us and want to have the populations back, and we can then help. But our rewilding program, where we've been able to show some success, places like Zambia they were only down to like 50 animals. They want cheetahs. They've trained their biologists. Zambia is an up-and-coming, wonderful country. So these kinds of things, if we have habitat and prey and can actually deal with the human-wildlife conflict interface, which revolves around education and economics, then we could potentially look at putting animals back into different areas. But you have to get all those things right, and we have to do it rapidly. And the sense of speed in which we have to do this is faster than I can even explain to you. And I hope that all of you do know that. And from here, I think Washington, D.C. is such an important hub to spread the word about our environment, our wildlife issues, and the ways that all of us can work together. And so every place that I go, I try to go into the hub and try to deal with the politicians as well, because it all does revolve around economics and policies and security and education. So,
speaking of the high mortality in captivity, and I'm having a hard time understanding how one could compensate for such a huge area that's normally covered by a cheetah and the ability to run. I mean, I should think just even taking that away would stress an animal. And are there certain things that you've already pinpointed that can help?
Sure, running. And so we use mechanical lures, and we suggest that every zoo runs their cheetahs regularly so that they can actually get that speed out. And so that's a very important part. The National Zoo has a lure system. The National Zoo also has just set up a great breeding facility at their Conservation and Research Center. So we've looked at asking facilities to have larger areas and actually running their animals. That definitely helps. Reducing vision of lions and tigers, letting them have a place where they can just, sleep if they want, which isn't really the best exhibit. But those are all things that we make recommendations on. The cheetah is an animal that really doesn't want to live in captivity. It wants to lead us as humans into a place where they can survive, which in my opinion is going to allow all of us to survive, because these systems will be intact. So it's a messenger. And the message is we better really get it and work fast. Thank you very much.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.